Hey guys, and welcome to Smells Like Teen Angst. We are here to discuss with you the final episode of Cruel Summer, and then maybe a few other things thrown in. So get ready. That played crazy, but I liked it. Hello, everyone. And I know it's been a minute. You haven't seen our faces in so long because Riverdale has decided to leave us forever. What it feels like. But I gathered the troops. I rallied the friends so that we could talk about and let Keiki scratch herself. Summer's big show of Cruel Summer. Guys, this final episode, I know we wanted to do it also like after show, and we weren't able to. But we had to come together for this final one just because the show has been bananas. As we dive in, did you have a favorite part of this season overall?
Yeah, my favorite was definitely the Martin relationship discovery with Kate. That blew my mind.
All of episode 9. That was a big one for sure. I'm right there with you.
I'm going to say my favorite parts were anytime that Vincent read someone the riot act, because it was always well-deserved, and Vince was just the moral compass of this show. And so if he told you about yourself, you needed to hear it.
Those
Agreed.
were facts.
I also really liked a lot of the scenes with the dad. I thought that he was such an integral part of the show as well. He was a man of like mad integrity who never gave up on his daughter no matter what happened. Where her mom was just like, one little thing came out and I'm out.
I know.
I also loved the scene with Ashley where she was like, me and my dad do not have your privilege. You all need to calm down.
I thought that was great.
Because that was definitely something I brought up in the very beginning when I watched the first couple episodes. I was like, I don't understand how in 1995 this interracialness is just living all happily. Come on. Rodney King was just like a year before this shit started. Come on.
Yeah.
OJ is happening like concurrently, okay?
In a tiny town in Texas, of all places. So, all right. So let's jump in. I don't want to get into the part that everyone wants to talk about yet. We're going to start from the beginning. We're going to go chronologically. I think that's the way to do this episode. So we have this weird relationship that's happening now with Jeanette and Jamie, right? Like he's apologized to her for punching her in the face, and now he's like her biggest supporter. What do you guys think of that?
Way to flip-flop. And also, way to forgive.
I feel like Jamie was the character who evolved the least and whose storyline was the least resolved as well. Because I feel like everyone else got to a place where it made sense, right? And they all kind of grew in some way. I feel like he didn't necessarily grow. He like went backwards, and then it was just like, well, everything's okay. We're back together.
Yeah. He went on this weird apology tour also. You know, he like goes to Ben's house and is like, I'm taking full ownership. And I appreciate Ben was just like, and so who cares?
Are you going to AA? Are you going to stop hanging outside Jeanette's house? Are you do anything for yourself, bruh?
Never. He's obsessed for some reason. I don't know. She's like the Sookie Stackhouse of Cruel Summer, I guess. I don't get it.
And I'm sorry, I'm with you, Keek. Snowman could punch me in the face and I'd be like, oh.
No dick is good enough to be punched in the face. None. Jeanette, come on.
And I just don't know how her dad, her brother, let alone her dad, just kind of like let that happen. Like her brother kind of went for him, the father and him come over to his house and talk about it. And the parents seem to not even care. They're like, well, your daughter did this thing. And it's like, did she though?
Okay. Even if somehow I convinced my relatives to not go after a man who had punched me in the face, they still wouldn't let me date his ass again.
Never. Are you kidding me? Never. And then we get a little bit of resolution with Vincent because, Jamie's apology tour. He convinces Ben to go talk to Vincent because Vincent did nothing wrong other than like touch his thigh when he was in the ambulance because he cared about him. And so now we're like a year later and Ben shows up at the movie store and is like, hey, so I realized because, this guy told me I was wrong and I think he's right.
It's Pride Month, so I have respect for visibility for queer characters on television. I'm always about that life. I love the idea of it, especially under the eyes and guise of 1993, 4, and 5. Mm-hmm. But my issue here is that we don't get enough of this character's like love story situation for him to go that left and be that scared. Because if I recall, they literally had a full-on scene where they're like talking in the gym and hanging out, and and he's like, it's hard to see you at school and not talk to you and saying hi and stuff. And then for you to flip over another space where no one knows and no one can know and end your whole relationship and blow up your whole situation for that, for someone who cares about you, doesn't really seem in line with what they were doing for the character in the beginning.
I will disagree with that. I think they had a very sweet setup, and I love the scene where they like drive to towns away to go to a gay bar and just dance, and the bartender is like, oh, they're underage, but I'm just gonna let them dance anyway. Like, it's sweet, and that was very sweet. I get, and I'm not condoning Ben's actions, I get his fear, because we need to step back for a second and remember how crazy things were in 1993, 1994, and 1995, especially in a small town in Texas. I would say that it's still not necessarily safe to be visibly queer in a small town in Texas, but especially in the 90s, this is right around when, I can't think of his last name, but Trevor of the Trevor Project, like this is right around when his murder occurred. Like, I can definitely understand, this is during the AIDS epidemic, like I get why neither of them would want to be open about their relationship. Does that excuse Ben's behavior? No, he was still a dick. But I get why they were both being extremely cautious. And Vince even says it himself. Like, Vince says it, and he says it in such a way that, like, hey, I'm black and I'm gay. I have double things at risk here. Mm-hmm. And I was willing to stand up for you. You could have stood up for me too.
Yeah. I like that they left it a little open-ended as well. So we don't really know what happens. We can guess. And I know this show was renewed for a season 2. Boop, boop. And who knows if they're going to follow the same characters? They could American Horror Story it and completely go with a whole new story.
I mean, I'm kind of hoping they do an anthology series and just, and keep the same like non-linear timeline and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if they want to give us more of these guys, I'll take it.
Right. Maybe they'll like plug and play them.
Yeah.
I love this show. I think it's a definite way to transition a younger generation into loving crime just as much as we all do.
What are you saying? We like true crime?
And in responsible ways. Sorry, I'll cut you off, Keiki, but I'm going to come back to my thought. Sorry.
No, I was just saying I think it's a really responsible way to kind of like transition our younger generation into true crime whilst teaching us things, because I know I had to talk to my lawyer friend about a couple of things just to clear up like what's actually legal, what actually happens, what is actually allowed.
Speaking of, Jordan, do you want to make your point real quick and then I will continue on?
Yeah, okay. I just want to shout out the whole series in general for being so incredibly responsible, and I feel like this is ushering in a new era of Freeform, and I hope that like this is where the bar is for Freeform now, because this is the best written show they have ever had. And when you think about, and lots of other articles and journalists and bloggers and people have talked about this, when you think about Aria and Ezra's relationship on Pretty Little Liars, and then you contrast that now with Martin and Kate, talk about a shift in storytelling and a really responsible way to handle it. And I love that, before every episode, they had the trigger warnings. At the end of the episode, they had the different hotlines you can contact. And I love how both, not just in trigger warnings, but like in character speech, they made it clear that was grooming. It was not a relationship. It's not cute. It isn't something to aspire to. She was groomed by a predator. And even as recently as Riverdale, we haven't had a story told that responsibly.
Yeah. The only other one is a teacher did a really good job. I don't know if you checked that out. We have a review of that as well.
Yeah, that was Hulu though, right?
That's Hulu they did a really good job with that as well, because you can see, similarly to Kate and Martin, he thought he was doing a thing by choice. She also thought she was coming over to someone by choice. You know, like she may have, chosen to go there, but she thought it was a safe space because he made her feel that way, even though he's a grown-ass man. Anyway, I think it's a really good watch for people who might be like, well, is it grooming? She made choices. She fell in love with him. She did this. She did that. You know, like, why are we like? It's a way to see the other side and to realize that that's not what was happening. So then the next big scene that happens, we get the courtroom and the drama and the things. And when they drop Exhibit 4, the noise that came out of me was amazing. I was like, oh, it was awesome. And this is when we call in our lawyer friend, which people may not know that Carly is a lawyer.
Hey!
Hi, Carly.
Hi, guys. As the resident lawyer of Smells Like Teen Angst, I just wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page. So there was some pretty jaw-dropping evidence brought into court in the finale. And it ended up being the transcript of Kate's conversation with Berenike, who happened to be her sister.
Right.
Jaw drop, we knew this, but she didn't know this. However, there was an opposition that I'd like to clarify here. So the opposition was made by Kate's counsel because of the fact that it was not disclosed during discovery. And I just wanted to drop some legal knowledge that impeachment evidence is able to be presented at court during a final trial, as long as it is for impeachment purposes, i.e. trying to prove that the person on the stand lied. And that is so that the opposition counsel cannot, prep their client or get that in before the trial. So I just wanted to drop in and let you guys know that this was all kosher and is what happens normally.
Yeah, I thought that was wild. The transcripts getting dropped. They're being like, you're a liar. You went there knowingly. Here's all this stuff. And that's why we've called in Carl, because I was like, I thought they'd have to like motion for discovery, put this in. If you watch crime shows, you know this happens. They're like, oh, we didn't have enough time. We just found it. There's a lot of that goes on. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
Love our legal counsel,
Perfectly
Carly.
legal.
Thank you,
Thank
Carly.
you
Isn't that crazy? I had no idea.
Well, it wasn't. I knew that part was legal. The part that got me was when she's like, is it the truth, Kate? Or is it, and she like called her by her screen name. And I was like, oh, if I was her lawyer, I would have objected to that last part. Strike that shit from the record, because now you're just being a smart ass.
Yeah, I was like cold-blooded, but it was so good. That moment in the courtroom, everyone's like, what? And then, her lawyer's like, you're not being honest with me. You're not telling me the full truth.
It was very Perry Mason, and not the new HBO one, the old. I've been watching the old one when I go to bed at night. It was very much original OG Perry Mason.
Yeah, I loved it.
But also, guys, if you're going to lie, you need to tell your lawyers the lie.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, if you're going to lie, you need to be the only person who knows the lie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So then after
around telling people.
I know. Y'all. You can't be sharing your stuff on the internet, especially in the 90s. None of that was safe.
Yeah.
Also, I love the way that they got a hold of this evidence is with Jeanette's brother begging Kate's sister. And he's like, what is this? I was going to just check my email and I see this whole chat transcript. And good on him, because he could have very much been like, oh man, what a betrayal of trust to the girl I just slept with. But he's like, absolutely not. This is my sister. Like, what do you guys think of that choice that he made?
I stand by his choice. The only thing that was curious to me, I was like, would a 20-year-old really have cared about his email that much in 1994?
I mean, it depends. Is he waiting on like a result of something? Is he waiting for, like
they sent results through email back then? Like, what was email in 1995?
I don't know. I'm making up things.
I was like, I don't know what email was like in 95.
It was
AOL.com
baby and Yahoo.
But
I was not a baby.
Could you send all these transcripts via email? And if you printed them out, I remember those really loud, slow printers.
A dot matrix? Do you think that he printed out those transcripts on a dot matrix?
Yeah, that had to take forever. And she would have been like, what are you printing? Right?
Well, no, they had better printers back then, and Kate's family was rich, so they definitely had. Because they already had 2 top-of-the-line printers because they gave one to Mallory, and that's how we find out about the letter.
Right.
On the door. So...
Mm-hmm.
So they would have had that OG laser printer.
Yeah.
It still would have been loud now.
But even if they were at college or wherever it was that they were sleeping together, he could have done a copy paste. Computers have always copy pasted. He could have Control Alt A, you know what I mean? Like Control A, Alt, Control C, copy, paste into an email and emailed it to himself. That's all he had to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I hear you.
Go home and print it. And that, go home and print it.
But no, I loved that he still had his sister's back, especially when you think about, her mom just up and left. She found what? First of all, she went snooping, which that's your own fault. You shouldn't go snooping if you're not ready to find what you're going to find.
Yeah.
And then she found a key, and then she was like, I'm going to go follow my dreams and be a flight attendant. Bye.
Bye. The whole mom storyline was very weird. It was very pointless in the end, really. It felt
wasn't odd to me, because to me it really drove home. So we have Kate and Jeanette, right? And they're foils of each other. If we go back to high school English classes, they're foil characters. And then we have Cindy and Kate's mom. I can't think of her name right now. And those two are foils of each other. And basically they're just playing their own drama off and projecting onto their daughters. And to me, the story really, when we get to the very end and we see how everything wrapped up, the story to me wasn't so much about Kate being a bad person, Jeanette being a bad person, or even Mallory being a bad person. It was more about how every single adult in this town failed every single child in this town.
That's fair.
That's fair. But I do think that we could have been a little bit more on the mom's side if we had some of that back history. We do know very shortly, we learned very quickly, that her and Cindy had this very similar relationship that is kind of vice versa in high school. But we see what Cindy has become. She's completely flopped and become the wife of a very popular, councilman, city piece of the town, or whatever he is, senator. And
ex-sports player,
something. Okay. He has power. People love him. And then you see you see Jeanette's mom, and she really hasn't accomplished much other than being a mother. And there's no setup as if she had dreams or aspirations or wanted to do something, or if their marriage was failing or wavering at any point. So what you're left with from what the show gave you is, here's a mother who abandoned her child in a time of need. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's what we all took from it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Her mom, I feel like the audience was just as blindsided as her husband when she's like, you remember when we were younger and I always wanted to travel and I wanted to be a flight attendant? That conversation comes out of nowhere for everyone, including us. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I see both your points.
If Sarah, I can't remember her, if Sarah Drew's character had talked about her hopes and dreams before that, I feel like it would have given Jeanette a door to not do what she had done. Sarah Drew's character's hopes and dreams were all about being so popular and being so great in high school. And she projected all that onto Jeanette. And then Jeanette went to crazy lengths to protect that. Mm-hmm. And if Jeanette had been able to see that there are things beyond high school, you have hopes and dreams, you can accomplish them, or whatever, she wouldn't have gone as nutty. Yeah. So I kind of get why they didn't mention any of the mom's hopes and dreams first, because she didn't mention them. She was still caught up in high school bullshit.
That's fair. That's true too. Yeah. Oh, the drama of parents. And then to continue on in this episode, the next big thing that happens is we get the meetup and the confrontation that we've all been waiting for since episode 1 is Kate and Jeanette meet up at Martin's house to have the conversation about like the confrontation of you saw me. No, I didn't. Let's talk it out. Like all of this could have happened a year ago and then none of this show would have happened.
Yeah.
You know, like
have the conversation, ladies. You like Kate was so worried about just getting back at someone for what she went through that she couldn't, discern what actually happened. And I understand she went through a ton of trauma. Like who can say how a person would react in that moment?
Right.
But her blatant refusal to even confront Kate is really what led to this whole series happening.
Yeah, it was just her need to point fingers at someone besides herself and besides Martin, which she shouldn't point fingers at herself. They should all be pointed at Martin. And, she thought she saw Jeanette, and we learned the way it all went down, like Jeanette coming in the house to steal things. Because why? Who? Like in the end, she's a kleptomaniac and a weird, I don't know. And she came and she heard a noise and runs out of the house with the snow globe. And that whole time, and then we learned there's more to it. Because after seeing that in episode 9, I was like, why would she ever think Jeanette saw her? She just barely Martin had put a freaking curtain on the door. So even if someone opens the door right away, you have to crawl your way through like you're on stage in high school. You know,
Mm-hmm.
You're like, how do I do this? And so then we learn a little more that she walks back over to the window, turns the light off, looks directly at someone with a bicycle in a hood. And it's not Jeanette.
So and who does it happen to be?
Okay, but can I tell you by episode, I had all these different theories by episode 7, and I was like, There was a two-way. My big one was there has to be a two-way mirror in the basement. She went down. She thought that they look, but all that Jeanette saw was a mirror, and Kate could see through. Yes, I had all these theories, and it turns out it was an Occam's razor situation where the simplest answer was the answer, and that Kate just looked out a window and saw someone looking at her out a window.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but she the thing is too, she turned the light off. You know what I mean? So who's to say whoever looked in the house would see anything but a silhouette of a figure, if anything at all?
Exactly. That was such a big thing for me.
Yeah. So Kate is in this moment where she was wanting to leave and wanting to get out, and he would never let her leave. This is before he even locked her in the basement, and we learned that he locks Kate in the basement out of self-preservation at that point. Cause he's she's going to get out. People will know, they'll come for me. I'm going to jail as a pedophile. And we all know what happens to pedophiles in jail,
Mm-hmm.
that's, so he's you can never leave, and locks her in a basement. And then is I don't want to, there's so much more. And that whole reveal during their conversation of it being Mallory, who is the one who saw her. I was we all knew Mallory was sketchy from day one. We all knew
Mallory was sketchy.
Right? We all knew there was more to this character. And I was, because she got on my nerves, and I was why do they keep featuring her so much? What has she done? What is her purpose?
She's involved.
Why is she important?
Yeah, right? She gets on my nerves. Why is she here?
Exactly. Once she dumped Jeanette, we should never really seen her again. You know what I mean? She never even tried to befriend her the way Vincent came back to her. And she was just always still kind of around. And then she's the random person who befriends Kate when no one else will be her friend. And you're just why is she now Kate's friend? She hated Kate. None of this is making sense. And then we realize it's because she did it out of guilt. Mm-hmm. You learn, I'm just going to jump ahead just a little bit, because Kate then also confronts Mallory and is what happened? And I believe her that yes, she had the videotape of Martin's house. But she didn't watch it, and so she didn't know what was on it. And then, or if she did, she didn't see she didn't know to look for Kate.
That tiny little face on a 1995 VHS and be oh my God, that's Kate Wallace.
Exactly. And then she sees a blonde person in the window, but freely walking around. And she said, why would I ever think that was you? And she's I understand why you wouldn't think that was me. And you didn't see my face. And then she's I never thought anything of it until I heard that you were captured, and it was at Martin's house. And I'm oh my God, I saw that person, but was it her? She was walking around freely. So it was just
And that part I thought was actually really, like, it's all fucked up, right? But that was really lovely, where she says, if I had told that I had seen you, then I would have given up both of our secrets. That was your business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it also makes me really mad. And this is also why, because she is supposed to be Jeanette's friend. They've been friends forever, even if they've had a huge falling out, right? And then she lets Kate drag Jeanette like that through the mud.
And that was the part that's shitty, because Mallory honestly could have nipped all of this in the bud a long time ago. If she would have both those girls, she could have just drugged them both to a coffee shop and said, listen, you're both fucking lying. You're both in the wrong right now, and you're both going to ruin each other's lives. Figure your shit out.
Yeah. And we learn, Jeanette has an ulterior motive, but then what's Mallory's motive for doing that? What's Mallory's real motive for staying quiet when she could have nipped it as soon as it happened? Mm-hmm. We don't really learn what that is. Unless it's just that she was secretly in love with Kate the whole time, which is why she hated her so much. Right. Fine line between love and hate, ladies.
Yeah. But also would not want to play that as a trope for this show.
No, I think it would cheapen it a lot from where we're at. Mm-hmm. We also learn, because Kate's like, hey guys, would you Jeanette, go with me to the basement, because my therapist says that in order to figure out who Annabelle is besides a creepy doll, I need to go down to the basement and figure that all out. And she says, yes, I can't say I would have done the same thing.
Me either. It was not resolved.
They had just had this really brutal heart arc, and I could absolutely tell that Kate's apology was sincere. She was very sincere when she said, if I always said you, absolutely believed it was you. If I hadn't thought it was you, I never would have said it. Yeah. And so she really admit that. And I feel like at that point, they're both in the house already. What do they have to lose? They're both fucked. Might as well just go down in the basement. Whatever.
I mean, that's fair.
YOLO.
And we learned that Annabelle is actually Martin's family heirloom, which is a pistol that apparently also killed his father.
Can we talk about how foreshadowed this was? Because when they go on the hunting trip, and he's like, oh, I'm terrified of guns. I was sitting there, I was like, that's how funny, because he died in a shootout. And then later we realized it wasn't even a shootout. The foreshadowing was even heavier than that.
It was wild. That whole scene between Martin and Kate, I thought was fantastic. Her sitting there thinking, Martin, are you going to murder me? He was so calm. He came down. He had this box. And he's just like, it killed my father. And there's only one way to get out of this. And she's like, are you going to kill me next? And he holds the gun up to his head and doesn't end up pulling the trigger.
And that's a moment where I was actually really proud of Kate for self-preservation. I'm sure she feels guilt for the death of Martin, because she did have a relationship with him, but that's because she was groomed into that relationship, and she's going to have to be untrained to realize what happened and what she went through, and taking that step to take back her freedom, it's probably going to haunt her for the rest of her life, but she did it.
Yeah.
She got out of it. She was her own hero. I'm glad that it wasn't the cops running through like I thought it was the whole season.
Right.
She was the person who got out.
Yeah. It was a very powerful moment, I felt, for her, because she very much could have not done that. And I feel in a way, I'm not a therapist. I don't really know the terms and things, how much of a Stockholm syndrome it turned into versus, where it ended up, being able to kill the man who captured you.
Mm-hmm.
And would it have gone that far if he hadn't locked her in the basement? What would have happened? There's so many what ifs. What would have happened if she was just able to frolic and leave when she wanted to and made up a story?
She's a teenage girl. She would have got over it.
It would have ended up the same way regardless, because she would have gotten over it, and he was too concerned about his reputation and his future and what it meant for him. Mm-hmm. Because he was even, if we go back a couple episodes, when they're supposedly living together all happy, she is already at prisoner status. You can't go anywhere. There's curtains everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, look at my travel books and figure out somewhere we can go to. So it would have ended up in the same place where she would have felt like a prisoner regardless. And when she was over it and ready to leave, he would have said, there's only one way this can end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we also learned that Martin had a history of being with younger students. So it was like we learned all these like little bits that it wasn't the first time and it wouldn't have been his last time either if he had gotten away with it. Oh, Martin, you creepy motherfucker.
I hope this show serves as a warning to all pedophiles and abusers. Fuck around and find out.
Mm-hmm.
Martin gave me Ezra vibes the entire time, and it made me real happy that Freeform went there.
Yes, right? Ladies, shoot your abuser. Fuck it. I'm so glad. This is the messages that Freeform is giving us in 2021, and I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. I like it. I like it.
Free Centoya.
I do appreciate that Kate went on national TV and was like, I was mistaken. Jeanette had absolutely nothing to do with this. She is not the villain. We've talked it out. Everything's fine. We're dropping all the things. Because that didn't have to happen, but I'm glad she did that. And then,
Yeah, no, she didn't have to do that. So it's good. And I'm a big fan of, like, if you drag someone publicly, then the apology needs to be just as public, you know?
Absolutely.
I've gotten into personal situations where I did have a friend who drugged me on Twitter because they believed a rumor. And when we finally talked it out and they confronted me and I was like, I have receipts. Like, these are the text messages. This is what I said. I don't know why you believe that rumor about me. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, yeah, well, now that we've worked it out, you need to get back on Twitter and tell everybody else. Because you can't just publicly be throwing dirt on me and then not publicly apologizing.
Mm-mm. No, and she did it, and she went on. Then, like, I liked that the tables turned a little bit on her with the reporters being like, "How do you feel dragging an innocent person through the mud? Like, does this make you a liar?" You know, and it just kind of shows like perspective is truth in a way. Right? This was what she honestly thought was true, all because of a bicycle. You know, that she had seen her ride once and didn't realize it wasn't her own bicycle. Mm-hmm. And then we get this 1 month later jump. And, you know, Jeanette is on television. Jeanette is getting her dream of being a woman in the light. The sun is coming down on her. She's back with Jamie.
With her headband and her pearls.
Her headband, her pearls.
Here was my thing, though. I have two comments. First of all, Jeanette's hair looked a lot better in this scene when she's on TV, so good for you. No,
it's terrifying. Anyway.
I hate her short haircut, and also I hate the scene where they showed her in the bathroom cutting it, because I was like, there's no way it would have been that even.
No.
And her hair was originally curly. That cut wouldn't have come out like that.
No, she would have looked like a hot mess.
It would have been like...
Moving on. When, you know, I liked that she, like, she also, like, accepted Kate's apology nationally on TV, so that was, like, you know, like, she was having her moment, but the one thing that I did say is, like, she still would have had to change her name. Like, it doesn't matter if the girls squashed their beef. Like, she still would have had to, she can't just go around being like, oh, I'm Jeanette Turner and, like, expect to get jobs and shit. Like, she would still have to find a whole new identity.
Yeah, it's like, if, never mind, I don't remember. I was going to say something and I completely lost my train of thought.
Tonya Harding, like, anyone who's lived through a weird controversy like that, they can't just keep living their lives.
Yeah, no, absolutely not.
Also, but like, when she mentions the boyfriend, is she talking about Jamie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, girl.
That's what we're all led to assume, and I hope not.
I know, like, what type of lovely small town life are you going to live with your alcoholic high school boyfriend who punched you in the face? Honey.
And has DUI on his record.
It's like, all right, yo. What I was going to say is, like, Jeanette now, like, looks like the bigger person, like, but you know there's going to be, like, conspiracy theorists out there that are like, you know, Jeanette paid her off or something, and some other stuff came out and that she had to lie to say that it wasn't her. Like, you know,
that's what I'm saying. Like, Jeanette would have had to change her name and move to, like, Alaska.
Yeah. It's a thing. And then we see Kate and Mallory driving off, still beautifully friends. And then they get out of the
weird Texas thing. They just park somewhere and just get out and start dancing.
Oh, you can't do that in LA.
You cannot do that in Los Angeles. You would get cleaned out.
Yeah, no cars pass. And then Kate kisses Mallory, which I felt kind of came out of nowhere. Am I the only one who felt that?
I didn't. I thought they were going to kiss when she said, "Don't you dare leave me."
Yeah, I saw it coming. Their relationship was incredibly, incredibly close. And I think that, you know, you're young and you're still figuring your shit out and you have a relationship that close, you would try it.
Sure.
And like, and also, you know, that Mallory's the only safe person that Kate has in her life at this point. And even Mallory's proven not necessarily to be a safe person because she lied that long, but like.
Yeah. But if you believe Mallory's reasons for lying, then they're semi-justified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I mean, she just accepted that apology so quick.
Yeah. The reasons, like, something happened. She was able, once she talked it out with Kate, she was able to like see the forest through the trees a little bit and not point fingers and actually listen to reason and, you know, a mesh of therapy and time. And then, y'all, we get the ultimate moment at the end of this episode where we're back in the house and Jeanette's broken in again like she does. And she hears, "Hello? Is anyone there? It's Kate Wallace. Martin has me locked in the basement." Almost turns the handle.
Thinks about it and then
Doesn't do it. We learn Jeanette is actually crazy.
Oh, I screamed. When it happened, I screamed.
Jeanette did steal her life. Jeanette
I think my whole
crazy.
neighborhood heard me scream holy shit when it happened.
I love it. I love that it was both. That they Kate was wrong and oh my god.
But also Jeanette was right because Jeanette was like, "You didn't see me though."
Exactly.
I didn't see you.
If you said it, I heard you. Maybe.
It's so funny because so I watched it with my mom, the whole series, and we were watching it together. And like after the first episode, we kind of like we paused a little bit and we're like, "So what do you think happened? What do you think's going on?" And we're both like, "I think that they're both shady. I think they both are lying, and there's something really weird and fucky going on." Yeah. And somehow they're both at fault. And we kept watching and we kept watching and we kept watching. And then we get to the end and we're like, oh, fuck, we were right. They are both weird and wrong and lying.
Oh, I was like, oh my
God. But to your point, Keiki, she wasn't lying. Jeanette didn't see her.
You didn't see me. If you would have said I heard her, you heard me. Maybe.
But I didn't see you.
Yeah.
I heard you.
She also said, I didn't know that you were there on the night that you thought I did. You know what I mean? The whole thing was you.
Jeanette was very smart in her word choice. And because she never lied, she just didn't tell the whole fucking truth.
Yeah. She never saw her.
No.
She sure enough heard her about a year later.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She didn't know she was there on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. Could you
imagine? She definitely found out a couple weeks, maybe a couple months later.
Yeah. Well, she had straight hair at this point and was dating Jamie. So this was a minute since that. Like, you know what I mean? This
was a couple months.
This might have been like, because that was 93. This was 94, 93. I don't know. This part of in that year. I don't know when it was. A couple months, a few months.
I said on the screen that it was 94.
Okay. It was like right on the cusp of her coming out and her life almost getting ruined. Could you imagine the difference though? If Jeanette had thought this through? Right? She was so worried about losing her life. If she had actually rescued Kate Wallace, it would have been a whole nother world of positivity for her. She would have had the light.
Deal with the boyfriend thing, but like her and Kate would have been like, you rescued me from my abuser?
Besties. You would have ended up homecoming queen.
Right, homecoming queen, valedictorian. Like they would have given her every accolade and every award in the world because she rescued Kate Wallace.
Mm-hmm. They would have been on every morning show. They would have been interviewed by Oprah, and she would have been right there the whole time, being like, "Wow."
A reality TV show, like.
And in the end, Jamie still probably would have chosen. Yeah, I think Jamie still would have probably chosen Jeanette because he was only with Kate out of guilt. You know what I mean? Like it was still would have all worked out that, and all she had to do was open the door. And
is a 15-year-old responsible enough to really think things through like that? Absolutely not.
No, all she could think was, I could steal this girl's life.
Preservation.
I know where she is. Self-preservation.
Crazy. Y'all, this show was so good. I loved it.
Was shook by how good it was.
So good. Season
this show
2
could have been on HBO.
It could have, but I'm glad it's on Freeform. Freeform keep giving me more. I want it all. I
want this to be the bar of Freeform shows from now on. All shows on Freeform have to be this good or better.
100%. Look, the bold type is ending. We're getting a season 2 of this. I need another one just as good to replace the bold type. Come on now. Let's go.
Just as good.
Bring it to me.
Run it to me.
It's good. And, we promise season 2, we will do an after show for y'all. So you're going to get us for Riverdale whenever it decides to come back. And it's coming back in like August. And then the next season is like a month later. It's so dumb. And then we'll be here for Cruel Summer when that premieres, I'm assuming in a year.
It's a cruel
summer. And it's going to be a cruel summer waiting for this next season.
I know. Look at you. You're so smart. All right, guys.
Sometimes.
Ladies, I love you. Thank you for chatting this show with me because it was so good. I missed my girls. I needed it. So everyone, thank you guys so much for joining us. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, ring the bell so you don't miss any more of our angsty videos. Until the next one.
Bye.
Bye.